In 2002, Slobodan Milosevic, the former president of Yugoslavia, faced 66 counts of crimes against humanity, genocide and war crimes for his role in the Bosnian conflict. But in a newly resurfaced article, Seumas Milne, who has stood by Mr Corbyn's side from the start of his leadership, blasted the court-scheduled trial. Milosevic, Mr. Milne, Mr. Corbyn's chief advisor and a former Guardian columnist, hid out at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia ICTY as unfair and claimed Milosevic's indictment was brazenly political. This was the same argument put forward by Milosevic, who died in his cell during his trial. Getty. At least 8,372 are believed to have been killed in the Bosnian genocide in Srebrenica alone. The 16-year-old article resurfaced yesterday following the conviction of Ratio Lodic, who was handed a life sentence by the ICTY yesterday on charges of genocide, war crimes and crimes against humanity for his part in the conflict. In the 2001 opinion piece, the Corbyn aide claimed the new Belgrade administration dug up corpses to order in a bid to convict Milosevic. At least 8,372 are believed to have been killed in the Bosnian genocide in Srebrenica alone, in a conflict which claimed tens of thousands of lives. Mr. Milne wrote, supporters of the Hague Tribunal argue even if the former Yugoslav president was effectively kidnapped on behalf of those Western states which like to describe themselves as the international community, that was a necessary price to pay for justice to be done. Getty. Mr. Milne is Corbyn's chief advisor and a former Guardian columnist. What they seem unable to grasp is that justice will never be seen to have been done, because the tribunal for the former Yugoslavia cannot seriously be regarded as a genuinely independent court. In an attack on the trial, Mr. Milne claimed the man longer reviled as the Butcher of Belgrade or even a quasi-Nazi dictator, despite whose regular election victories, has already been convicted in the court of Western public opinion. He added, Milosevic clearly shares political responsibility for the country's immolation, with his opportunist pandering to rapacious nationalism, and if evidence is produced directly linking him to killings and deportations, that responsibility would also be criminal. Thursday, March 17, 2016. Things you didn't know about Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, but far better for the future of Yugoslavia if such evidence had been tested in a Belgrade court. His trial at The Hague will be seen both in Serbia and beyond for what it is, a demonstration of power more than of justice. Following the former president's death, the court found Milosevic and others in Serbia had not done enough to prevent acts of genocide from occurring in Srebrenica. Labour MP for Dudley Ian Austin blasted the opinion piece as disgraceful in a furious Twitter tirade which appeared to indict both the Labour leader and his advisor. He said, today, at long last, Ratko Mladic was convicted of genocide. That's genocide, folks. Getty. Milosevic died in his cell during his trial. This is what Seumas Milne wrote about another butcher being put on trial. Utterly disgraceful, and people wonder why we have doubts about the leadership. Following the conviction of Ratko Mladic, Shadow Foreign Secretary Emily Thornberry tweeted, long overdue relief. That evil Ratko Mladic will pay for the rest of his life for his horrific crimes. Never know freedom again. My thoughts tonight are with all his 10,000s of victims, their grieving families. The International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia has done a difficult job with a great objectivity, professionalism. Mladic, known as the Butcher of Bosnia, was sentenced to life in prison for the massacre of more than 7,000 Bosniaks, Bosnian Muslim men and boys, at Srebrenica in 1995. He was also sentenced over his role in the siege of Sarajevo, which left more than 10,000 people dead. The 74-year-old tyrant smiled broadly to the cameras and gave a thumbs up as he entered the courtroom, prompting fury among the relatives of his victims, but his smirk did not last long, and the war criminal was pulled out of the courtroom before sentencing was read after screaming at judges. Sentencing was delayed for roughly half an hour after Mladic asked for a bathroom break, and was delayed further when the brutal war criminal's lawyer asked for sentencing to be delayed on account of his client's high blood pressure. When the request was denied, the former commander rose to his feet and shouted at judges before being forcibly removed to allow the reading of his verdict. In total, Mladic faced 11 charges, 2 for genocide, 4 of violations of the laws or customs of war and 5 of crimes against humanity. He was cleared of 1 count of genocide, but found guilty of all other charges.